The Citadel of Unity floated like a crown of glass and steel above Arinder Prime, a structure so vast it cast a twilight shadow across the planet's clouds. Inside its mirrored corridors, the hum of power conduits mingled with the low murmur of alien tongues. Flags of 72 species lined the grand hall, shimmering beneath a cold white light that never dimmed. It was a place of law and pride and silent contempt. Captain Arion Voss of Earth walked through the council's corridor with his boots echoing softly against the marble floor. His uniform, dark gray with a blue stripe along the collar, bore the weight of quiet history, the emblem of humanity's youngest yet fiercest protectorate in the galaxy. To his right, Commander Elias Rain, a Navy SEAL with the unmistakable aura of battlefield composure, leaned closer. "They don't want peace, Arion," Rain whispered. "They want obedience." Arion didn't answer. His gaze fixed ahead, where the twin doors of the grand chamber loomed, each pane carved with the sigils of ancient civilizations. Every meeting here was political theater, and humanity was often the villain in someone's script. The guard at the entrance, towering, silver-armored Zirans, scanned them with blank expressions. When the door parted, a wave of sound and light spilled out. The grand chamber rose like an amphitheater, layered with rows of alien delegates whose eyes, tendrils, and scale faces turned toward the two humans entering the hall. At the center stood Admiral Ray's Core, his broad frame encased in obsidian armor, the Ziran insignia gleaming on his chest. His reptilian eyes, yellow and sharp, followed Arion's every step with deliberate disdain. "Captain Voss," the Admiral said as Arion reached the center dais. "Earth still sends its soldiers wrapped in sentiment, I see." Arion stopped before him. "We send them wrapped in conscience, Admiral." A low hiss escaped Core's throat. Around them, murmurs rippled through the tiers. The council's moderator, a calm, crystalline being known as the Seraphine Arbiter, raised a translucent hand. "Proceed," it intoned, voice resonant like struck glass. "Today's hearing concerns the Orion incident, the human-led decision to evacuate civilians against direct military protocol." Rain stepped forward, his tone steady. "We saved 83,000 lives when Ziran Command ordered the bombardment. Disobedience is not heroism," Core snapped. "Your defiance cost us a tactical advantage. Your tactics would have wiped out a city." Rain's voice cut through the hall, sharp but controlled. "Our orders were flawed. We acted to protect innocence." Core's claws tapped the table, the sound deliberate, metal on metal. "Emotion clouded your logic. That is why humanity cannot be trusted with independent command." Arion could feel his pulse tightening. He had expected tension, not insult. Around them, other species watched with mixed interest. Curiosity from some, silent satisfaction from others. Humanity's reputation had always been a paradox, admired for courage, condemned for defiance. Arion spoke, his voice calm but edged. "With respect, Admiral, emotion is not a defect. It's a compass. Without it, soldiers become weapons without aim." Core's eyes narrowed. "Weapons win wars, Captain." "Dead hearts don't build peace," Arion replied. A hush followed. Even the energy conduits along the walls seemed to hum lower. The Arbiter intervened again. "Captain Voss, restrain your commentary. This hearing seeks clarity, not philosophy." Rain's hand brushed Arion's sleeve in quiet warning, but the words were already burning at the back of his throat. "Clarity," Arion said, turning slightly toward the assembly. "Clarity died the day we replaced conscience with code. Humanity may be young, but we remember what it means to bleed for something more than victory." Core's jaw flexed, an almost human gesture of anger. "You presume to lecture this council? Your kind still stumbles between stars it barely understands." "Yet here we stand," Arion said evenly. "Invited, tested, doubted, but still standing." Laughter rippled from one of the upper tiers. Sharp, mocking. A delegate from the Kseth Collective muttered, "Humans mistake passion for power." Core seized a moment. "Exactly. They confuse impulse with leadership. A race driven by pride cannot comprehend unity." Arion clenched his jaw, forcing himself to stay composed. "Unity without respect is tyranny, Admiral, and tyranny breeds rebellion. The Zirin stepped closer, his scale face inches from Arion's. Careful, Captain. Words can be as fatal as weapons here. I've lived through worse than words, Arion said softly. Try a war fought under orders you knew were wrong. For a moment, silence stretched in between them. Two soldiers separated by ideology rather than species. Then Kor turned away dismissively. Typical human dramatics. Your kind will learn submission or isolation. Choose wisely. Rain's restraint finally cracked. You're not a god, Kor. You just hide behind the council's silence. The chamber stirred again. The arbiter's voice rose, crystalline but strained. Enough. This assembly will deliberate further before judgment is passed. Humanity's representatives may step back. But Arion didn't move. His voice, though controlled, carried the weight of something deeper. Tell me, Admiral, when your troops razed the city of Aurelian, did they feel anything? Or did your system strip them clean of guilt too? Kor turned slowly, eyes glowing with fury. Feelings are luxuries. Soldiers who feel hesitate. And hesitation kills. Maybe, Arion said, but conscience saves what's worth fighting for. The Admiral's expression twisted. You speak as if guilt is a virtue. Arion met his stare. Maybe it is. It means the soul's still alive. That struck something, not just in Kor, but in the hall itself. The chamber felt heavier, air charged with unsaid truths. For a fraction of a second, even the counselors of ice and iron faltered in their certainty. Then Kor stepped closer, breaking the fragile quiet. You humans will destroy yourselves with sentiment. You cannot follow command. You cannot silence your emotions. You are chaos given flesh. Arion's restraint trembled on the edge of breaking. But before he could speak, Rain placed a hand on his shoulder. Not today, he murmured. They're not worth it. Arion breathed once, slow, steady. The Admiral's smirk deepened, mistaking silence for surrender. You see, Kor said to the assembly, even their leaders bow when challenged. Their courage ends where consequence begins. The insult struck like a blade. Arion turned his gaze to the rows of delegates. The eyes, the whispers, the judgment. He saw what they thought humanity. Brave, yes, but unstable, passionate, but undisciplined. He straightened, voice low yet steady. History remembers more than obedience, Admiral. It remembers those who had the courage to disobey for the right reason. And as the session adjourned, the words lingered, quiet, defiant, dangerous. The doors closed behind them with a hollow thud. Rain exhaled, tension loosening from his shoulders. That could have gone worse, he said, half grinning. Arion stared out a tall window at the stars burning beyond the citadel. No, he murmured. It's just begun. The next meeting would decide not just Earth's honor, but the very soul of humanity. The citadel's night cycle dimmed the corridors to a low amber glow, though time here meant little. The artificial sky above the station never changed. Only the lights told the living when to rest. Yet sleep was rare for Captain Arion Voss. He stood alone in the observation deck, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the planet spinning below. Erinder Prime shimmered with the blue of oceans and the golden veins of cities that never slept. From this height, every world looked peaceful, until one remembered who governed it. Footsteps echoed behind him. Commander Elias Rain approached, the faint scar on his cheek catching the light. He carried 2 metal cups. Synthetic coffee, he said, offering one. Closest thing this place has to comfort. Arion accepted it with a faint nod. You shouldn't be here, Elias. They're already watching us too closely. They always watch, Rain said, leaning on the railing beside him. But if they wanted to silence us, they'd have done it after hearing. Arion took a slow sip. The bitterness suited the silence between them. Rain spoke again, quieter. You saw Kor's face. He wants blood. The next session won't be talk. It'll be a trial dressed as diplomacy. I know, Arion said. And I know what happens when emotion meets order in that chamber. Rain looked at him closely. You're not the type to lose control. Arion gave a dry smile. Everyone has a threshold. Mine's just waiting for the right reason. They stood without words for a while, watching the stars drift past. Beyond the observation glass, the faint outline of a fleet moved in orbit, hundreds of ships belonging to the Galactic Navy, their formation perfect, unbending. "Do you ever wonder," Arion said finally, "what it would be like to fight for something without being told when to stop?" Rain chuckled softly. "You mean freedom? That's the one thing soldiers aren't allowed to define." Arion turned toward him, his expression grave. "Maybe it's time someone does." Rain straightened, the humor fading. "Arion, don't start a fire you can't put out." "I'm not starting one," Arion said. "It's already burning. The council just pretends not to see the smoke." Before Rain could respond, the door slid open. A figure entered, slender, robed, with translucent skin pulsing faintly with light. It was Envoy Talon, a Seraphine delegate known for neutrality. "Captain Voss," the envoy greeted softly, "the council requests your presence at dawn. A private pre-hearing with Admiral Kor has been arranged." Arion set his cup down, voice measured. "Private?" "Yes. The Admiral insists on clarity before confrontation." Rain muttered under his breath, "That's Zirin code for intimidation." Talon ignored him. "You will attend alone, Captain. The council demands impartial decorum." Arion studied the envoy's unreadable features. "Understood." When Talon departed, Rain turned sharply. "They're setting you up. You know that, right?" Arion nodded once. "That's what makes it worth walking into." The following cycle, the council chamber was empty when Arion entered, stripped of its grandeur, only the Admiral waiting near the dais. The room felt colder, without the murmurs of thousands. Kor stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his scales glinting under the overhead lights. "You came," he said. "Good. Humans rarely face judgment willingly." "I came for truth," Arion replied. "Truth." Kor stepped closer, his heavy footsteps echoing. "Truth is irrelevant in war. Order is what survives." Arion met his gaze evenly. Order built on fear isn't survival. It's decay. The Admiral's mouth curled. Spoken like a poet trying to command an army. He circled Arion slowly, voice low. "You believe your emotion makes you superior. It doesn't. It makes you predictable." Arion turned slightly, tracking him. "Predictable enough to save lives you call acceptable losses?" "Acceptable losses when empires." "And how many empires still stand?" Arion asked quietly. The question landed harder than expected. For a heartbeat, Kor's eyes flickered, not with guilt but recognition. Then the coldness returned. "Earth's arrogance will doom it," Kor said. "You speak of compassion as if it can shield you, but compassion is weakness. It breeds hesitation." Arion took a step forward, his voice calm but charged. "No, Admiral, it breeds humanity. And that's something your system has spent centuries trying to erase." Kor's jaw tightened. "Your words sound noble, Captain, but nobility dies the moment orders are given. Tell me, when a command came during the Orion conflict, why didn't you disobey then? Why did your hesitation cost lives?" Arion froze. The words hit like a blade. He had buried that guilt deep, but Kor had dug straight into it. Kor's tone grew sharper. "You obeyed then, and thousands burned for your obedience. So spare me your talk of conscience." Arion's breath came slow, steady. "You're right," he said finally. "I obeyed, and I've been paying for it ever since." Something in his voice, quiet, stripped of pride, unsettled Kor, but arrogance masked the flicker. "Then you admit your failure." "I admit my humanity," Arion said. "Something you'll never understand." Kor laughed, a dry, hissing sound. "Humanity. You cling to that word like it excuses everything. The Council tolerates your species because it amuses them, emotional curiosities with primitive valor." Arion's patience strained. "We're not curiosities, Admiral. We're a reminder that rules without conscience destroy what they claim to protect." "Careful, Captain," Kor said, stepping close enough that Arion could feel the heat of his scaled skin. "Your words tread the line of insubordination." "I don't serve lines," Arion replied. "I serve truth." Kor's eyes glowed faintly, golden and cruel. Truth doesn't matter when the council decrees guilt. Then maybe it's the council that's guilty, Arion said quietly. Kor's claws flexed, but he smiled instead, a cold, deliberate gesture. You will regret that tone when this trial begins. Your people's place among the stars depends on my recommendation. Arion's reply was soft but unyielding. Then I hope they judge us by the strength of our hearts, not the silence of our fear. The Admiral's expression hardened. You mistake insolence for courage, and you mistake control for leadership. For a long, tense moment, neither moved. The air between them seemed to hum with restrained violence. Finally, Kor turned away. Dismiss, Captain. Pray your temper serves you better in the chamber than it did in war. Arion saluted sharply and walked out, every step measured. But beneath that composure, something inside him shifted, the calm beginning to crack. Rain was waiting in the corridor outside. Well, he asked. Arion didn't slow. He's not looking for truth. He's looking for submission. Rain fell into step beside him. Then what now? Arion glanced toward the distant light spilling from the chamber's doors. Now, we stop letting them define who we are. The chamber felt colder than before. The kind of cold that wasn't from temperature, but tension, an invisible frost creeping through every word, every stare. Dawn's artificial light filtered through the crystalline dome above the council, painting sharp reflections on the polished floor. Captain Arion Voss stood at the center once again. Around him, rows of alien delegates watched like predators assessing prey. Commander Elias Rain sat behind the human delegation, his jaw set, eyes steady but wary. He knew this wasn't a hearing. It was a verdict waiting for justification. At the highest seat, the Seraphine Arbiter lifted a translucent hand. The council reconvenes to finalize inquiry on the Orion incident, it announced, voice echoing like chimes struck in water. Admiral Ray's Kor presides as senior accuser. The Admiral rose from his dais. His presence alone silenced the murmurs. The Ziran armor caught the light, black, edged in crimson. Captain Voss, he began, his tone deliberately measured, you stand before this council accused of undermining command authority, contaminating joint forces with emotional reasoning, and publicly challenging a superior officer. The accusations hung like blades. Arion didn't flinch. I act to preserve life, not to challenge authority, he said calmly. Your judgment led to military disorder, Kor countered. Because of your interference, Ziran units delayed orbital fire by 41 seconds. That hesitation cost our fleet casualties. Arion's voice remained steady. Those 41 seconds saved 83,000 civilians. A stir rippled through the tiers. The Arbiter gestured for silence. Kor leaned forward. You presume to weigh civilian lives against military efficiency? I don't presume, Arion said. I decide when conscience demands it. The Admiral's golden eyes narrowed. Then you admit defiance. I admit responsibility, Arion replied. Whispers swirled around the hall, some in disapproval, others in admiration. Few humans had ever spoken to a Ziran commander like this, especially under council scrutiny. Kor pressed on. You humans pride yourselves on morality, but morality without discipline is chaos. You jeopardize an entire operation to soothe your guilt. Arion's expression didn't change. If guilt keeps us human, I'll carry it gladly. The Admiral slammed a clawed hand against the podium. Enough of this sentimentality. The hall shuddered from the force, and silence followed, a dangerous, brittle quiet. Arion's eyes met Kor's. The tension between them wasn't just personal now. It symbolized something larger. Two philosophies colliding, one mechanical, one mortal. The Arbiter's tone turned wary. Captain Voss, your words carry implications of rebellion. Do you wish to retract your statements? Arion's reply came without hesitation. No, I stand by them. Rain, sitting behind, muttered under his breath. And there it is. The Ziran's tail flicked once, the movement sharp. Very well, Kor said. Let the record show that humanity admits insubordination under the guise of moral conviction. You seek empathy in a system built on obedience. You will learn that feelings don't win wars. Arion's voice lowered, firm as steel. Then maybe that's why your wars never end. The statement struck like thunder. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Protests, outrage, curiosity. The Arbiter's hand rose again, its luminous skin flaring bright, to restore silence. "Control yourselves," it commanded. "We will not descend into chaos." Arion exhaled slowly, aware that he was dancing on a blade's edge. Yet there was no turning back. The truth had already begun to unravel. Kor took a step forward, voice quieter but far more dangerous. "You humans believe passion gives you strength, but it blinds you. One day it will destroy your species." Arion met his gaze. "Maybe, but I'd rather be destroyed by feeling and survive without a soul." The line landed heavy. The chamber froze. Kor's jaw tensed, his composure cracking for the first time. "You are a soldier, not a philosopher." "I was made both," Arion said softly. "War teaches one. Regret teaches the other." The Arbiter intervened again, its voice echoing. "Captain, this hearing is not your stage for ideals. The Council demands submission to its laws." Arion's eyes turned upward toward the dome where the reflection of the Council shimmered. "Laws mean nothing when they silence what makes us sentient." The Arbiter paused, uncertain. Even its crystalline tone faltered for a breath. Rain leaned forward, whispering to himself, "He's walking into the storm." The Admiral's restraint snapped. "You forget your place," he thundered. "You forget the blood you owe to the Confederation that gave your species a seat among the stars." Arion's voice cut cleanly through the echo. "We earned that seat. We didn't beg for it." A gasp spread to the rows. The Arbiter called for order, but it was too late. The exchange had already shifted from debate to confrontation. Kor descended the dais, his heavy steps reverberating through the hall. "You dare speak to me with such insolence?" "I dare speak truth," Arion replied. The Admiral stopped before him, towering, scales glinting under the white lights. His voice dropped to a growl. "If you were under my command, Captain, I would crush that arrogance before it infected another soul." Arion stood still. "Then maybe that's why your command breeds fear instead of loyalty." Something primal flickered in Kor's eyes, anger too deep to restrain. He stepped closer, inches from Arion's face, voice trembling with fury. "You think your kind is special. You think your fragile hearts give you power. But I buried empires stronger than yours." Arion's reply came quiet, unwavering. "And none of them learned what humanity will." "What's that?" Kor hissed. "That survival without compassion isn't victory. It's extinction." Kor's hand twitched, claws flexing. The movement was almost imperceptible, but every eye caught it. Even the Arbiter's glow dimmed in alarm. The Zirin loomed over him, shadows slicing across his face. "Watch your words. Human. The Council's patience has limits." Arion didn't move. His calm, unbroken stare felt like defiance carved in stone. "So does mine." The silence that followed carried the weight of something irreversible. Finally, Kor straightened, cold composure returning like a blade sliding back into its sheath. "Then may your defiance serve as an example. The Council will deliver its judgment at the next session. Pray it finds you worthy of mercy." Arion bowed slightly, not in submission, but respect for the ceremony he no longer feared. Mercy is optional, Admiral. Dignity isn't. He turned and walked toward the exit. The sound of his boots against the floor echoed through the chamber, steady, measured, unbroken. Rain rose and followed, ignoring the stairs burning into their backs. When they reached the corridor beyond the great doors, Rain finally spoke. "You just painted a target on humanity." Arion stopped, exhaling hard. "Someone had to." Rain shook his head, half in disbelief, half in admiration. "You know what happens next, don't you?" Arion glanced toward the long hallway, leading back to the human quarters. "They'll test how far a man can bend before he breaks." The council chamber was still echoing with whispers when Orion entered. The circular hall of obsidian glass shimmered with faint blue light, and 1,000 insignias floated holographically above the heads of its members, each representing a world bound to the Galactic Alliance. The air was dense, not from oxygen, but from tension. Every gaze turned toward him. The soldier who had dared to strike a Navy SEAL. The one who had challenged Earth's pride. Orion walked slowly, his boots thudding in the silence. He felt the hum of the chamber's pulse beneath his feet, a rhythmic vibration of the station's heart that reminded him he was standing inside a living monument of power. His mind replayed that moment over and over. The slap, the gasp, the flash of disbelief, an explosion of chaos that followed. He hadn't meant to humiliate the SEAL, only to silence arrogance. But pride, his and theirs, had always been a fragile thing. General Arya Thane stood waiting at the center. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes carried that quiet fury Orion knew too well, the kind that came not from anger but disappointment. "Captain Orion Vance," she said, voice sharp as a blade. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" He didn't answer. "Do you?" she repeated. "I upheld respect," he said finally. "Not for myself. For the men who bled under my command, while Earth mocked us from their comfort zones." The council members murmured again. Arya raised a hand, silencing them. "You struck an allied soldier," she said, "in front of the entire Galactic Council. That's not a statement, Captain. It's an act of rebellion." Orion met her gaze. Rebellion begins where arrogance goes unpunished. The chamber stiffened. A few heads turned, some in shock, others in quiet admiration. Admiral Knox, the Earth representative, a man sculpted from ice and discipline, rose from his seat. "You dishonor your uniform," he said, voice calm but venomous. "You forget your place among humans. You think wearing that galactic crest makes you superior?" Orion's voice was low, steady. "No, Admiral. I think it reminds me that superiority must be earned, not claimed by birthright or flag." Arya exhaled softly, rubbing her temple. "Enough, both of you." She turned to the council table. "This is not a political theater. This is a military tribunal. Captain Orion Vance, you will answer for your conduct." For the first time, Orion's voice wavered, not from fear but from restraint. "Permission to speak freely, General." She nodded. He stepped forward, the light catching the scar on his cheek, a reminder of battles fought on distant moons. "The SEAL mocked the fallen," he began, eyes locked on the council. "Mocked the soldiers who gave everything on Vega 9. He called them expendable. Said Earth doesn't waste heroes on alien wars." His fists clenched. "I didn't hit a man. I hit the arrogance that kills soldiers before the enemy ever does." The silence was heavy, pressing against the glass dome like gravity itself. Arya's eyes softened slightly. She had been there on Vega 9. She knew what it cost, but her duty chained her to order. "Intent doesn't erase consequence," she said quietly. "The Alliance doesn't survive by emotion. It survives by unity. Unity built on silence isn't unity," Orion replied. "It's submission." The words hung between them like static. Admiral Knox sneered. "Poetic," he said, leaning forward. "But out here, Captain, soldiers don't write poetry. They follow orders." Orion turned his head slightly. "Then maybe that's why poets outlive admirals." A ripple of laughter, nervous, restrained, moved through the chamber. Arya's eyes flashed. "Enough. This is not a duel of words." She stepped closer, her presence commanding. "Orion, you're one of our finest. But one more act like this, and you'll lose everything you've built. I can protect you from politics, not from your own pride." He looked at her, his jaw tight. "Sometimes, General, pride is all that keeps a soldier standing." She sighed. "And sometimes it's what gets him buried." The words cut deeper than she intended. For a moment, he saw not a superior officer, but a weary mentor, a woman who watched too many soldiers die, and too many others become ghosts long before death took them. The council continued to deliberate, voices overlapping in cold deliberation. Orion stood motionless, hearing fragments. Disciplinary transfer, symbolic punishment. Earth interests, galactic optics. None of it mattered to him. The truth was simple. He had acted, and now he would pay. When the verdict was announced, the chamber dimmed. "Captain Orion Vance," Arya said formally, her tone heavy, "you are hereby relieved of command of the 7th Expeditionary Fleet. You will be reassigned to frontier patrol duty, alone." A single sentence that erased years of leadership, of loyalty, of sacrifice. Orion nodded once, slow and deliberate. Understood. As he turned to leave, Arya called out softly, "Vance, you're a soldier, not a martyr. Don't forget the difference." He paused at the doorway. "Sometimes, General," he said without looking back, "the galaxy needs both." The door slid shut behind him, and the chamber fell into uneasy silence. Outside, the corridor stretched endlessly, bathed in silver light. Soldiers and officers avoided his gaze as he walked past. Some looked with pity, others with quiet respect. None spoke. He reached the hangar bay. His ship, the Eclipse, waited in the docking clamps, a sleek vessel scarred by battles but still defiant, like its captain. As he approached, a voice echoed from behind. "Orion." He turned. It was Lieutenant Zara Quinn, his second-in-command, and the only one who ever dared to challenge him. Her eyes were fierce, her expression torn between loyalty and frustration. "You really did it this time," she said. He managed a faint smile. "You say that like it's new." "Frontier duty?" she asked. "That's exile. You won't survive out there alone." "Maybe that's the point." She stepped closer. "You think punishment redeems anything? You think dying out there will make them respect you?" He looked at her quietly. "No, but it'll remind them that respect isn't granted by rank. It's earned by truth." Zara's voice softened. "You can't keep fighting everyone, Orion." He turned toward the ship. "Then maybe it's time I stop fighting for them." The Eclipse's engines ignited, casting a blue glow that rippled across the hangar floor. As he ascended the ramp, Zara's voice followed him, soft, trembling. "You were never meant to be alone." He stopped for a heartbeat, then said, "Neither was a galaxy. Yet here we are." The hatch sealed, and the ship lifted off, vanishing into the black void beyond the station. In the silence that followed, the hum of the stars returned, a low, eternal rhythm. Somewhere between pride and pain, the galaxy had lost another of its quiet warriors. But far from its shining heart, a storm was forming, one that would make the Council remember his name. The frontier was nothing like the heart of the galaxy. Out here, stars burned colder, slower, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The nearest outpost was 3 light years away, and silence was Orion Vance's only companion. The Eclipse drifted to the Black Sea, its hull illuminated by the faint shimmer of a dying nebula. The console flickered in dim light, casting long shadows across the cockpit. Orion sat motionless, eyes fixed on the stars that no longer inspired wonder, only distance. He had been here for weeks, maybe months. Time blurred when there was no one to count with. His reflection in the viewport stared back at him, a man carved by battles, stripped of command, now haunted by the echo of his own choices. Every star he passed seemed to whisper the same question. Was it worth it? The ship's AI, Lyra, broke the silence. "Captain, we've crossed the outer rim of Sector 47. Energy readings ahead. Unidentified source." "Threat level?" Orion asked. "Minimal for now, but unstable, like something's trying to hide." He exhaled slowly. "Plot a closer route. Let's see what the void is keeping secret." The engines hummed softly, and the Eclipse glided toward the anomaly. As the nebula's fog thinned, a massive wreck emerged. A shattered cruiser, its insignia still faintly visible under layers of debris. It bore the markings of Earth's fleet. Orion's jaw tightened. "Lyra, scan the hull. Identify the ship." "Scan complete," she replied. "Designation, Hawthorne. Destroyed 6 months ago. Official record, lost in hyperspace malfunction." "Lies," Orion muttered. "They always bury truth under reports." He activated the docking clamps, stepping into his exosuit. The airlock hissed open, releasing a wave of cold emptiness. The wreck floated before him, silent, ghostly, and forgotten. He pushed forward, magnetic boots clinking softly against the fractured metal. Inside, everything was frozen in a state of ruin. Burned consoles, twisted beams, bodies that never made a home. He reached the bridge. Dust particles drifted like stardust around the fallen crew. One body still sat slumped in the captain's chair, the Earth insignia on his sleeve barely visible. Orion reached for the datapad clutched in the dead man's hand. Its cracked screen flickered to life, showing a final corrupted log. Transmission from Vega. 9 survivors. They're not dead. Orders came to silence the signal. Repeat, this wasn't an accident. Static, then silence. Orion's chest tightened. His mind replayed the battle, the sacrifices, the lies. The seal he had slapped had mocked Vega, 9 as a graveyard fools, and now the truth burned in Orion's palm. Those soldiers had survived, and Earth had abandoned them. He clenched his fist around the datapad. They buried the truth. They erased them. Lyra's voice came through the comm. Captain, a signal is reactivating from the Hawthorne. It's transmitting toward Earth. Can you trace it? Already done. But, Captain, if it reaches them, they'll know you're here. Orion looked around the empty bridge. Let them know, he said. Maybe it's time someone reminded them what honor looks like. He uploaded the recovered log to the Eclipse, then disengaged the tether. As the wreck drifted away, its broken lights dimmed one last time, like a dying soldier saluting the one who found him. Back aboard, Lyra's tone changed, quieter, almost human. You know they'll send someone after you. I'm counting on it, Orion replied. For the next few days, the Eclipse moved through uncharted space. Orion barely slept. Every system check, every signal sweep, felt like waiting for judgment. Then, on the 4th day, the sensors lit up. Multiple contacts. Lyra said sharply, incoming. Earth Navy interceptors. For ships closing fast. Orion smiled faintly. Right on schedule. Captain, they've locked on. Open a channel. The comm crackled. Then a voice he recognized, sharp, arrogant, and unmistakable, filled the cockpit. Captain Vance. This is Commander Hale, Earth Navy. You're in restricted space. Surrender immediately. Orion leaned forward. Hale, still polishing medals he didn't earn? A pause. Then the commander's tone hardened. You're under arrest for treason and obstruction of military secrecy. Treason? Orion said, his voice steady. The truth doesn't betray anyone, Commander. Only lies do. You found the Hawthorne. You shouldn't have. And you shouldn't have left those men to die. Silence hung for a beat. Then Hale said coldly, this ends now. The interceptors fired. The Eclipse shook violently as plasma rounds tore through its shields. Orion's hands moved fast, switching to evasive maneuvers, his instinct as sharp as ever. Lyra, divert power to rear thrusters. Full burn. Understood. The ship roared forward, weaving between asteroids, trails of blue fire streaking behind it. The interceptors followed, their weapons lighting up the dark. Shields down to 40%, Lyra warned. Orion's voice remained calm. They always underestimate a soldier without orders. He triggered the countermeasures, magnetic mines that exploded in perfect arcs, shredding 2 of the pursuing ships. The explosion painted the void in gold and red. Hale's voice returned, angrier now. You can't run forever, Vance. I don't run, Orion said. I lead. He locked onto the remaining ships, firing a concentrated plasma burst. The first interceptor went silent. The last one broke off pursuit. Lyra's voice softened. Enemy retreat confirmed. Orion exhaled, gripping the console. Send the Vega 9 transmission to the outer relay. Encrypt it and blast across every civilian network. Lyra hesitated. If you do this, there's no turning back. He looked at the stars outside, the cold, indifferent witnesses of every lie humanity had buried. Then let it burn, he said quietly. The truth deserved to breathe. The signal launched. Across the galaxy, data rippled through relay after relay, unstoppable. The truth about Vega. 9 was out. Minutes later, the comm lit up again. This time, not Earth. It was a faint, broken voice, filled with static but unmistakably human. Orion, this is Vega. 9 outpost survivors. 32 of us still here. We heard your signal, waiting for extraction. He froze, heart pounding. Lyra, trace that source. Coordinates locked. But, Captain, it's deep inside the raid zone. Radiation storms, magnetic interference. No one's ever returned from there.